What's on your evil mind?
Hold your insulting tongue and mark my words well.
How about this rumor that you are really Iron Man, Mr. Stark?
Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Comic Book Chronicles. I am your host, Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter and Blue Sky. You can find me at News Nerds Neat on Twitter and Blue Sky. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram.
South Carolina with Columbia down the way.
And sound effects you've heard come from the Northern and our man in Brooklyn, one agent _70 on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads.
What's up, everybody? Co-hosting from the borough of Kings. It is a little bit nippy up here. It is just about to get pretty brick out there, but we're coming at you live and direct.
Brooklyn!
I'm just a kid from Brooklyn.
No shortage of Brooklyn shout-outs indeed. And you can find this here podcast on the Cold Slither Podcast Network, the CSPN.us.
Do it today!
Which, by the by, the last episode should probably be out there for your perusal, even though it was grazing up on this one recording, but that's okay, because it'll be fine.
It is.
Yes. And you can also find us on your podcast perusal place of choice, whether it be Apple iTunes, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Coastal of the Podcast Network SoundCloud page.
Make sure to click like, subscribe, and leave us all the positive 5-star reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts, because that helps people find our show.
Yes, and I'm not entirely sure what Google's doing with their podcast stuff, but I'm pretty sure you can find us there too, but you know. But yes, folks, we are back. We're live. It is December. It's cold as F. And, but we are still here. So we are going to start off with something just a little different, folks. Both Agent 70 and I have been playing the new game Marvel Cosmic Invasion, which we both have been highly anticipated with, anticipating, and it is now out as of December 1st. So we're just gonna chop it up about that just for a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yes.
Just a little bit. So I downloaded this. You know, I used some tips from Roddykat. You know, I downloaded it from work while I was sitting at my desk on my phone, and it was ready to rock when I got home.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I did the training bit. We were, you know, Roddykat and I were just talking about this, so you know, we're kind of rehashing some familiar stuff. In that, you know, when you kick off the game, you're just now, you know, you're kind of reimagining what you know you know, the fun you could be having in like an arcade, but you know, just kind of settling into the, you know, into this particular experience and kind of reorienting yourself, because I don't play that many beat 'em ups. I've played a few in recent history, but you know, at the end of the day, you know, it takes some kind of getting used to, right? You know, remembering that it's about timing. It's a little bit like Super Mario, where you need to move out of the way of certain things, as opposed to, you know, putting your body in, you know, or you know, moving your character out of the way of certain things, because there's an indicator that something bad is coming very quickly in that direction, right? So, you know, you just have to kind of remind yourself. They do have a fun interactive training segment right at the beginning, before they throw you headfirst into the story. So, you know, that's a cool little intro. And at the end of the day, you know, I have one little nitpick, you know, and I told Roddykat about it. He hadn't even played it yet when I told him about the nitpick. But, you know, it's not a big it's really not a big nitpick, but it's because I like the character so much, and, you know, he's kind of there as a substitute for another character, and it would, kind of annoy me if if both were there and neither of them could do what, let's just say both of them were similarly limited, right? But at the end of the day, I'm having a lot of fun with this. I'll hand it off to Roddykat for his thoughts.
Yeah, and I suspect if they do add in, I'm hoping they do some DLC and they add some characters, because the space for the roster, even when you unlock everybody, because you don't get the full roster right off the back, and I have not, by the way, unlocked all everybody at this point, but
right, because you have to kind of make your way through missions to do that.
correct. There might be one locked behind one of the I don't think so, but there's some extra stuff. We'll talk about that in a little bit, that you can unlock some stuff, but I don't think a character is locked behind that as well. But nevertheless, like I said, hopefully they'll do some DLC and they'll add some more characters, because they very much have the space to do that if they so choose to do that. But they have a set roster, and surely the people they have in there are probably going to be, like I said, you represent, like 87 said, you unlock them during the course of the story, and all the ones you get right there. But this company also did that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles beat 'em up game of recent note, if I'm not mistaken, and they did do DLC for that and added some more other characters. So I suspect even with or without that, they will do that. That being said, the game is fun. I enjoy beat 'em ups. I from the days of Final Fight and whatnot, I have always liked to beat 'em up here and there. And from what Tribute Games has been doing with some of their other stuff, including especially the Turtles, because Turtles was great from across the board. So that one's also worth checking out if you have not. But a lot of the references here are kind of on spot. Like, yeah, there's the voice work. Obviously, some familiar, some some not, because it's from some of the voices that you would know from recent or more recent cartoons in the Marvel spectrum. So there is that, but also some notable voices playing other roles that you didn't expect, I guess, or I didn't expect, I guess. Let's just say the current voice of Wolverine and the former voice of Wolverine are both represented here. I mean,
okay,
yeah, let's just put it that way. But not both playing, obviously, the same character. So
right.
And
I'll tell you that.
What's that? Go ahead.
What I was going to say is, I'll tell you that something I noticed from like the teaser stills that we got of the game and the videos that we got of the game revealed to me that the animators for this game were obviously very influenced by other Marvel games, that came before.
Mm-hmm.
And you could literally spot pixels, frames that were almost lifted from Marvel versus Capcom and all of the Capcom fighting games, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they were those on top of the other Easter eggs that are in the background, on top of the Easter eggs that are part of the story. That is a great Easter egg for anyone who's a seasoned Marvel video game player, where you're like, oh, that's a Stars and Stripes by Captain America, or that's
You almost get a Berserker Barrage without him saying it.
Right. Exactly. I think it's not a Berserker Barrage, but it's just like I forget the name of the move, but he does something very similar.
Yes.
Where he stands in place and he kind of, pokes at everybody.
Right. And there's even the one, like if you jump on somebody with Wolverine, there's the whole,
Yes.
There's that too. So yes. First off, before we go any further, shout out to Von Gloom who's in the chat. So yes, sir. We have not got into books just yet, so you didn't really miss nothing, anything. We're talking about Marvel Cosmic Invasion, the video game that just came out, the beat 'em up that just came out on digital platforms. So yeah. Also, he asked, "Are you wearing the monkey suit from the Bloodhound game video?"
No,
I don't think that's what he was doing. So, Drill Claw was a move. but I don't think he does drill claw in this.
No, there's no drill claw, but that would have
yeah.
been fun.
Yeah. Black Panther, however, almost does a Psycho Crusher, or a reverse Psycho Crusher, but that's a whole nother situation. Either way, but yeah, like I said, the game is fun. The missions are cool. There's challenges you have to do, some of which, if you just go through the level, you could do if there's some of the usual stuff like, hey, don't get hit by this thing, or by a certain thing that happens throughout the course of the level, or beat up XYZ a number of enemies with said character. Which I will mention this one because there was one that was like hit 3 enemies with one shield throw with Captain America, which might sound easy, not always. No, Von Gloom, still no Dick Rider joke. Sorry, even though he is in this game, and we did just finish talking about him, which actually brings up something else because. As Agent 70 said, the starter mission is a tutorial with him and Phyla Vell, and it is kind of funny because it's like he makes a statement right at the beginning that kind of mirrors something that he probably would have said in the Nova Centuria #1 that just recently come out, and he's also talking to Worldbind, so they definitely had that all in there. In the mix, but that said, like I said, I think the voice work is good. The voice work for the Watcher kind of tripped me out for a second because I thought it was like, are they trying to do a Jeffrey Wright impression? Because it kind of sounded like that a little bit, and hopefully that's not a spoiler for you, Agent 70, but
it is, but it's okay.
Sorry, but yeah, Watcher shows up. Go figure. But yeah, like I said, the game's fun. You should check it out. I don't want to say too much about what that would be a spoiler because I want Agent 70 to see some of the stuff for himself fresh. But there are definitely a lot of references if you catch them, or a few references here and there. So they definitely took some care in some things.
There's more than a few because at the end of the day, I think that I played using Spidey during the I think it's the initial mission where you're going after the Beetle.
Yes. The New York one, yeah. The New York level.
Right. And that was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of weird seeing the alien.
Oh, you cut out. Wait, you cut out for a second.
Oh, did I?
Yeah. You're good now, but
oh, I'm sorry. Technical glitches. Let's hope the gremlins go away.
Yeah.
What I was saying is that I think the one thing that caught me a little off guard is the Annihilus. It wasn't the first screen. It might have been a few battles in where I'm trying to think. This might have been like where I stopped playing, where I think it was a cosmic screen. So I may have passed the Genosha screen. I don't remember if this is because the tracks that you're on are parallel to a certain extent. So they kind of forced me to go backwards. So I was playing a cosmic mission where I was fighting a bunch of bad guys who had been taken over by Annihilus bugs, and you could see the bugs kind of pop out alien style from the chests after the bad guys get knocked out. And I was like, oh, that's a particularly gruesome animation that I didn't anticipate seeing.
Wait, are you talking about the Sentinels? Because I believe that was the Genosha one.
Oh, was it? Okay, I apologize.
So.
Maybe it was a Sentinel board. Okay.
Yeah.
Sentinel screen.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't. Yeah.
That's probably what I saw. That's probably what I saw. So it wasn't necessarily because they were because one of the missions was that you had to free the captive mutants, and that was an Easter egg in and of itself.
And I'm not mad because I saw that challenge and I missed every last one. I was like, where were these people? Like usually you
Oh, you didn't? Oh, you did?
yeah. Because I saw the challenge. I'm like, all right, bet I'm gonna go ahead and try to get it. And then I went through that level and I was like, wait, where
were they?
Yeah, where are these people? And I was like, so, but yeah, so that
Yeah,
was
there's
my
something
fault.
that you have to learn. Yeah, there's something that you learn is that a lot of the background, or at least a lot of the things, are destructible and interactive.
Right. Not necessarily too far into the background, but yes. But if you go a little ways, then yes, some of the stuff is. So I like that, I played enough beat 'em ups to know that much, and I was hitting upon everything I saw. But when I got to that level, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I bet I do that. Because usually they would have been like, yeah, well, like, hey, I'm over here, or something like that, or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And I was like, and I went through that whole level, and I was like, you didn't do that one. I'm like, wait, where were these people? So that was the whole thing in itself. Which, like I said, it was not like I'm not going to go back and play the level, but it was just like sometimes in certain situations I was like, if I know I can get the challenge out of the way on the first try, I'll at least do that one, because you got 3 challenges per level. And like I said,
God, it's a good thing I didn't say who you rescue. So maybe they're always different, but maybe they're probably not.
No, I don't think they are. So
it was pretty fun to see the Easter eggs of the characters that you rescue.
Yeah, and like I said, and given that I know who comes up that you haven't seen, I would not be surprised, because I think one of the next levels you're going to come across, you'll see the 2 that I just mentioned. But anyway, Von Kloom says, let's see, they should add Ben Riley to make it more cringe Riley 90s. No, but also give him
thanks.
Yeah, but give him stingers and impact webbing to differentiate him from Pete. Now, that being said, I do wish they would put Miles in here. Again, we don't know if they're doing DLC, and if they did that, because that's an easy differentiation, because he has a slightly different power set. There's a couple other people that I thought of at the time while I was playing, like, yeah, they could put so and so in here. Like, they could definitely put Thor in there as well, because of since Beta Ray Bill is already in here. Whether they do that or not, we shall see. So, but yeah, fun overall. Excuse me, sorry.
Bless you.
Jeez.
Right. I'll say that. I remember. Was it Marvel vs. Capcom 2? Where Thor was a guest character, where you could like call him in off the screen.
Yes.
He would come in and do a lightning strike or whatever, and that was just a terrible tease.
And you could do that here. You can do something similar with that here with the people you team up with.
Exactly. That was just a terrible tease. But then when Marvel vs. Capcom 3 came out, that's when I was made happy, and I could run around as God of Thunder, just whacking people.
Right. Speaking of that, we need to get you set up on UMVC 3 Community Edition, because I think you would appreciate the bunch of the characters that they add to that. So if you are so inclined,
that's something I have to play on my laptop, right?
Yeah, because it's a PC. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But it doesn't take up much, and like I said, it's not that hard to put the extra stuff in there. I just have to run you through it. So it's just basically sticking a file in a certain place, but you'd have to own the game on Steam for you to be able to do that. Which at some point it'll be for pennies, so that won't be anything. But that's another situation. Like I said, Marvel Cosmic Invasion. We are not sponsored by this. We both bought that with our own money, because there are people who got keys for it because they're streamers and they do that kind of stuff. But we paid for our own money because we wanted it. And therein lies that. If anything we've said about that game is of interest to you, then hey, you know what? It is out there in digital form. It will be out there next year in physical form. So it is fun. You will have a good time with it, I believe. And we will be streaming it a little bit more. Heck, if we can get a stream to get of us hitting it up together one of these days, we could definitely set that up also. Either way. But folks, we are going to move on to some actual books of the week, and we're going to start off with a double feature, actually. First off, we're going to go with G.I. Joe number 14 from 2 weeks ago.
All right, I'm going to read this off of Roddykat's credits because I read it, I just didn't have it handy. So, G.I. Joe number 14 from 2 weeks ago is written by Joshua Williamson with art by Tom Riley. Colors are by Jordi Belair and letters are by Russ Wooton. And ultimately, it's the same creative team in the next issue as well. So in 14, it's, the next chapter in the Dreadnought War, and we kind of get caught up on how Duke and Cobra Commander fare in their erstwhile team up, and it's not going well. It's honestly not going well. Right, because and I'm trying to do my best now. I've got to kind of go back to our review copy so I don't step all over what happens in 15 just yet.
Right.
Let's see here. 14, not 13.
Vine Gloom, while you're doing that, Vine Gloom asks, did the color seem a bit trippy in both issues? I think that might have been a stylish choice, if I get what you're talking about, because it did feel like they were kind of using some old school techniques to make it feel older. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I think that might have been for both of these issues. Because yes, I did notice they were a little different.
I was about to say, Roddykat, go ahead. I'm pulling up my copy of 14 now.
So basically, Destro gets a little bit ahead of himself in his takeover of Cobra. We get a little bit of that at the beginning. As I've said it for the past couple of issues, Duke and Cobra Commander continue on their buddy cop movie business. And in this particular issue, they, like I said, it starts off at Fledged, but it not necessarily Tango and Cash style, but it's still probably more Fled than anything else. Where they have to basically roll up against, they have to fight off a bunch of dreadnoughts who are coming in droves. The Zatara and the brother don't give a f about their crew.
Right.
Given what ends up happening, but you find out that Cobra Commander, not to be laughed at in this version still, because he's kind of doing this thing, and he and
so,
go ahead.
No, what I was going to mention very quickly, and I'm not sure I can hear a little bit of feedback on my end. Is that when we're dealing with these characters, we have our preconceived notions, we have our history with them, and it just takes a little bit to kind of reorient and see where they're going with this stuff and what they're doing, with these characters, and to see them in the middle of mixing it up with the Dreadnoughts is just it's satisfying, but then that Cobra Commander is still capable. He's not like the sniveling weakling that he was portrayed, or that he was portrayed as in the cartoon. The Marvel comic book was always a little bit more kind, or a little bit more generous, as it were, with the Cobra Commander character.
Right, because it's a cartoon that's supposed to be made for children versus the comic book, where
yes, exactly, because they're actively selling the toys.
Right. So, and this as well. So, actually, Von Gloom brings up a point that I'm glad you did, because I was going to actually bring that up, because the current issue also does the same thing. Actually, I'll wait for that one, but I will say that Von Gloom says that did not expect to see a Dreadnought version of Evil Dead's Ash. That's kind of funny.
Right.
And I will say,
Chainsaw Man.
Yes. Also, so
it was very Chainsaw Man coded. That's the way I saw it.
Yeah. Also, for more current viewers and listeners, for folks, that's definitely the case. So, yes, Von Gloom, you do need to reread that because of that, because that's where that happens. And I'll mention that because like I said, I'm gonna bring up that in when we talk about 15.
Right.
Because there's more references to that miniseries that also happens in 14. So to continue finish off with 14 though, like I said, we find out that Hawk's got a meeting to go to, and we'll find out a little bit more about that in 15. And at the end of 14, we meet up with a seldom used Dreadnought adjacent character, of which Von Gloom also references in. We'll talk about that in a second. At the end of it. So that being the case. Oh, and also as I told Agent 70, 14 is where somebody asked the burning questions that we have mentioned about other characters showing up. That have not shown up yet, I should say. Mm-hmm. So somebody asked that question, and they do give an answer, but obviously it's not the answer that you want to hear.
You're referring to the letters column?
Yes.
The letters page.
Yes.
Okay. It's not in story. It's not part of the story at all.
Right. So, but like I said, somebody asked a question in the letters page that we've all been asking for quite some time. It's during the Energon universe, and they had an answer. That's all I'm saying. Now we're going to cut to this week's issue, which is issue 15 of G.I. Joe. Same creative teams. We don't have to really go back on that.
Yes. Again, just very quickly, it's written by Joshua Williamson, art by Tom Riley, colors by Jordi Belair, and letters by Russ Rutan on G.I. Joe number 15.
Mm-hmm.
So you put into your notes a reference to this character, and I needed a reference. I'm going to click on that and let you carry on.
So yes, that character that shows up in this particular has shown up in the Energon universe before, specifically in Destro's miniseries. If you had not read it, but the character is a one-off from a Transformers cartoon, which is
no
funny.
kidding.
Yes, because I remember the episode when I had when I read the Destro miniseries, I was like, why does this character seem familiar? And I went and looked it up, and I found out this information. That's how I know this much about him. And I was like, I remember that episode of Transformers also. So that's what's funny about this character showing up here. So that being said, before we get to that, we get a little bit more about the character that was introduced last issue, which was Road Pig. Like I said, seldom used Dreadnought associate, where apparently grape soda brings everybody together in this issue, as it tends to do. The bromance between a couple of other Dreadnoughts is shown here a little bit more. We also find out about the other driver of the Thunder Machine, what happened to them, because apparently they knocked that character off screen, as you will. If you remember G.I. Joe the movie, or was it the movie or was it the miniseries? I can't remember where that character was introduced. I think it was a miniseries, one of the miniseries, where the character was introduced with the Thunder Machine, and was lobbying to become a Dreadnought. Like I said, they mentioned his demise. They mentioned what happens to him. So, which was kind of funny. I was like, all right,
gotcha.
They dealt with that, because so somebody else is driving the Thunder Machine in this particular version. Again, we get a little bit more on Duke and Commander, in the situation that they're in. People are getting worried for him. So somebody is going off to find him, but of course he's going to have some help. And I suspect somebody else is going to find out about his Cybertronian friend that they have. Hawk says part of the theme song when he's talking about Destro, which was kind of funny. And yes, Hawk ended up going to a meeting where the character that I'm mentioning shows up, but not knowing that the character is aligned with Cobra. So he was in for a rude awakening with that. But apparently Destro comes with a proposition that we don't necessarily get to hear and see. just yet. But also there are references to the Cobra Commander limited series, which I will say again, if you have not read, you should. But like I said, between a couple of issues ago and this one, you know, what's referenced here definitely are things that happened in that miniseries. Which brings me to what Von Gloom says real quick. So yeah, Von Gloom says he needed to reread Cobra Commander miniseries because he don't remember the particular Dreadlock losing his hand. Yes, Buzzer lost his hand during, spoiler alert, during that miniseries, and that's why he got the chainsaw hand. Yeah, and that's why he has a chainsaw hand now that people seem to like. Von Gloom says Ropig seems like an absolute menace. Would love to see him go against Nemesis Enforcer. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. Because of what happened in Cobra Commander miniseries. Also spoiler alert, but yeah, you can read in this to see what actually happened. Von Gloom says wasn't expecting the bite and the bite from this issue. That was kind of unexpected, but also, hey, we got a more ruthless Cobra Commander, so what you gonna do?
Right.
Says I laughed at the victim of the unfortunate high five. Yes, that goes back to something I just said about about the fate of a driver. So yes, that was definitely a cartoon character, but he did show up in Real American Hero though. I can't remember if that was first or that was in the cartoon first and they just brought him over to Real American Hero proper. I don't remember. Regardless, Agent 70. Oh yeah, the one last thing I'll say before I hand it off to Agent 70 is Commander. The Commander does channel McGruff the Crime Dog. And that's all I will say about that, and I will hand it off to Agent 70.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. You definitely covered the majority of it. I definitely felt like it was a nice reveal, having not read the Cobra Commander miniseries before. So, you know, I always understood that the Cobra Commander character was subtly different from what we had seen in previous depictions and iterations, but you know, it's kind of heavily influenced by the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And to see him be very reptilian in this issue was pretty cool. Right. Mm-hmm. That little reveal, you know, it was a reveal to me that, you know, that this particular form, that he was in this particular form underneath his helmet was pretty cool to see.
Yes, because he is still aligned with Coppola, and all that means he's just of course Cobra Commander and goes his own way. Again, this is information that also came out in the Cobra Commander mini.
Right.
So, but yeah, like the one other thing I was going to mention before we push off. So there was a clash that happens between two characters in this, and I'm like, that seems improbable. It's comic books and it's cartoon logic, but still, that seems improbable. But then again, a lot of improbable things happen, especially when you have people with prosthetics and, you know, and things. But yep. I saw that part and I was like, no, that definitely shouldn't happen like that.
That doesn't work. Right.
Right.
That's not supposed to happen.
Right. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, sure, we'll roll with it. Grape soda brings us together, folks, and that's all the last thing though is we do get a preview of the upcoming Quintesson War that's going to happen in the pages of Void Rivals, and I assume it's going to hit Transformers, but it's definitely going to start off in Void Rivals, so you get a little bit of preview from Void Rivals. And yeah, that's G.I. Joe 15. Again, it might sound like I've spoiled everything, but I did not, because there's some other stuff that happens with it. It's still a good read, and it's also a potential click of the week for myself.
Cool.
Yeah. So if Agent 70 has nothing else,
moving on.
What's
next?
Our next book is Batgirl number 14.
Batgirl number 14 is written by Tate Bromble with art by Steven Segovia. Colors are by Rain Barreto and letters are by Tom Napolitano. We are in, I forget the title of the story. But we're in the next chapter of this group push to hold on, because the story has a particular title, and it's The War of Shadows Part 3.
Yes.
Right? So this is the most recent chapter of this story between all of the different, they're not factions per se, but they're different groups that are League of Shadows-esque, right? And they're all kind of based out of Tibet and the Himalayas, and they're all like ancient orders of ninjas and shadow warriors, and that's generally who we're kind of diving into Lady Shiva's background and Batgirl's upbringing, and that's the basis for the story, right? And we're dealing with Cassandra Cain's newly found family, and how they're basically being placed into the story and how she's learning how to deal with them. I think I think the story is still strong. I think my biggest issue with this, with the way the story is told, the way this particular issue was laid out, was kind of the art, where I got a little lost in some of the art, whereas I felt like, while Taka Miyazawa's art is great to look at, sometimes the action gets a little hectic because it is ninjas, really. So there's lots of bodies and body parts flying around. I felt like the art in this issue was a little hard to follow, and I ran that past Roddykat, and he was inclined to agree, at least in one or two places.
Yeah.
So ultimately, that kind of detracted from my experience reading this. But I have to say that I'm definitely a fan of what Tate Bromble is doing with the character of Cassandra Cain, and kind of fleshing out more of this corner of the Bat family.
Yeah.
And with that, I'll hand it off to Roddykat.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. Yeah, so as we find out in this issue, well, one, I know Agent 70 had an issue with the newfound brother that Cassandra finds herself with, and some of that is slightly founded in this particular issue, because as he finds himself to be a liability in a couple of
Right. He's definitely a third wheel.
Yeah.
In many regards.
Right. Well-meaning, granted, but still, because he's still kind of operating under assumptions that doesn't quite work in the situation that he is in now. But that's because of his upbringing, partially. So that in itself kind of made him a liability in itself. But that being said, Kaz finds out some information about some stuff that, about what she's been led to believe so far about what she's doing, the missions that she's on. We also find out that, she's got somebody in her head very familiar to her, whether that is from somebody else's doing or by some other mystical means, we don't know. But as cast and crew gets a mission upon them, and we find out that someone else has had a side mission going on in that. And we also find out that even in that, we find out there's some things that are not what they seem to be at the end of this issue, both for Cass and both for the mission that they were on. So there is all of that. But yeah, like I said, like Agent 70 said, still a good story, and enjoying what they're doing with Cass with this, because she's definitely working out some things as this whole this whole book has been going along. Whether we get to the end of the story and that may or may not change for her, we shall see. I assume that is what they're trying to set up, to get her in a somewhat better place with her inner demons. But we shall see. That being said, because I thought there was something I was going to say, but I don't remember what it is, so it doesn't matter. But we're going to move on to the next book that we have in common, which is a new #1 of the week. which is Doctor Strange #1.
Doctor Strange #1, published by Marvel, is written by Derek Landy, with art by Ivan Fiorelli, colors by Dono Sanchez Almara, and letters by VC's Corey Petit. So this definitely picks up right where we left off with Doctor Strange in Asgard as the Sorcerer Supreme of Asgard, and he is called into service by one Lady Sif, and things just go downhill from there to a certain extent, because we get we get a familiar guest star who is definitely not happy to deal with Doctor Strange and not happy to deal with magic, but ultimately what we get here is an adventure in one of the 9 realms, because they make a point right at the beginning of this to remind everyone that Asgard is cut off from Earth, so it's really back to the 9 realm, because the 10th realm is not connected anymore any longer.
Mm-hmm.
So we have this specific adventure with another Odin's daughter, as it were, but one who was retconned into continuity, literally retconned into continuity.
Mm-hmm.
And shenanigans go from there because there's magic afoot. And with that, I'll hand it off to Roddykat.
Yes, and that character Agent 70 speaks of is on the cover, and if you're watching the video version, you can see who that is right for yourself.
Right,
and
I didn't want to spoil it right off the bat, but
and I'm
character
still
is
not going
on
to say
cover.
it, so yeah.
Right.
But actually, but that brings up a question though, because you just had me bring up. This is actually probably doesn't really even matter because what you said was still correct, but. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Midgard is one of the original 9 realms, and the 10th realm was the retconned one where this character comes from.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. That was the thing that I was
yeah, I was just kind of dancing around it to avoid spoiling.
Yeah, I know. But that being said, and we still didn't spoil it, because if you know that much about that kind of part of the world, then you kind of know who I'm talking about. And also. Again, it's on in the video version. If you're watching it, the person is on the cover.
Right.
Now, Agent 70, I am surprised you did not mention who else shows up at the beginning of the issue, because I thought you were going to have something to say about them showing up.
I mean, I was happy to see them, and they're in service of the realm.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because normally they would be hanging out with whomever is leading Asgard, right? But I'm happy to see them still kind of, doing their thing, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Right. I saw them. I was like, yeah, Agent 70 should be happy about that.
Yeah, of course. It's a great little, listen. It's not even an Easter egg. It's definitely part of the storytelling, right? Like if you're going to be in Asgard, if you're going to be passing messages, this isn't Demon Slayer. They were doing this they were doing this in whatchamacallit, in Thor comics as well.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Thor comics, there are references that go back to Immortal Thor, not Mortal Thor, but Immortal Thor, the last volume of Thor, and also, of course, Doctor Strange of Asgard, as this book would tend to do, because there are some things that come up at the beginning of this that references those things. So if you haven't read Immortal Thor, you will probably, and you read this, you'll probably be surprised about a thing that was mentioned in conversation.
Right, we're very much in, we're neck deep in Thor and Doctor Strange continuity in this book right now. Like you're kind of picking up a story that has been going on for a little while now.
Right, and obviously, not obviously, but it is obviously, if you know about what's going on in the greater Marvel universe at this point, Steve is not aware of what has just happened in One World Under Doom just yet, because he's still stuck.
Exactly. Like, because of the events of Immortal Thor, the events at the end of Immortal Thor.
Right. So there is that. Now, that being said, there is a name that shows up here when they get into things, because Stephen is basically thrust into a dispute between elves and angels, and a person's name that they need to be dealing with, or that they are now dealing with, shows up, and it is a variation of a word that is like they just basically changed the word, changed the lettering on it and just called it a character, which has happened before in sexes, but every other time I've seen something like that happens in recent history, it's like, really?
Yeah.
You couldn't have chosen any other name or something like that, but I get it. Sure. I get it. But when I saw the name, I was like, that's just silly.
Let it go. Let it go.
Yeah, I know. But still. But also there was a part of it in a certain explanation that I don't know if Agent 70 saw, but it felt a little bit of Lord of the Rings-ish. There was a little backstory in how that character was initially dealt with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely got that.
So I was like, okay, they're just doing a thing here. We see what you're doing, Derek Landy. But all of this leads up into leading with said person at the end of this, and I'm sure more issues to come. No pun intended, for Stephen and Angela and folks, as there's a little bit of subterfuge that happens, or possibly, a swerve. I don't know. We'll have to find out what happens with that bit next issue. So, but yes, that was Doctor Strange #1. Nice little nice little intro, or nice little #1 issue for this new story that he's got. And we're going to get to the last book that we have in common, which is Fantastic Four #6.
Fantastic Four #6 is published by Marvel. It's written by Ryan North with pencils by Humberto Ramos, inks by Victor Olazaba, colors by Edgar Delgado, and letters are by our favorite lettering python, the hardest working letterer over at Virtual Calligraphy, VC's Joe Caramagna. So I rather liked this story's title, and I'm flipping to our copy here. So this story arc is titled The Invincible Woman. Right? If you didn't think we were going to be MCUified, with lots of...
Oh, wait, hold on. You just cut out. After you said lots of, you cut out again.
Oh, man. It must be because I'm streaming Thursday Night Football on another computer. My guess is that, what I was saying is that, we're getting lots of MCUification because, lots of references to Sue being the leader and being the field leader in this story. Obviously, this story is centered on her. That's why it's called The Invincible Woman, Part 1. What we have in this issue is Sue turning the tables on some ne'er-do-wells who aren't all that bright, but she does some pretty fancy I've used the word shenanigans before. Let's say she's pulled some trickery on some, she didn't exactly turn Skrulls into cows, because that's a Reed move, but she does something pretty inventive with her powers to convince some alien ne'er-do-wells to pick up and pack up and run. And that was pretty cool. And we have some stuff teased here where Shield may be coming back in a different form. That's actually, pretty relatively big news. But ultimately, the big twist at the end of the issue, I didn't see coming. And with that, I'll hand it off to Roddykat.
Yeah, I don't think anybody saw that one coming. But so yeah, we, not surprising. Sue's a very intelligent woman, and we get to find that out. We have been finding out about that more and more in recent histories. in the last decade or so. So it's always a good to see. But this level of what she craftiness that she displayed this one even stumped her own husband at the beginning of this. So that was also kind of funny. It's not that easy to stump Reed Richards. I mean, unless it's magic, but then it's like it's a free for all.
And we're doing a lot. Obviously, like I said, MCUified. We're doing a lot to kind of nerf Reed here, in a sense. But I appreciate that he's that Sue's getting a lot of the plot driven story.
But in some actual MCUification, we see Maria Hill kind of dressing like MCU Nick Fury when she shows up, which was kind of funny. And yes, as Agent 70 said, we do get to see shades of maybe a version of or the version of a newly formed Shield now, because we know what's going to be happening in Captain America is also going to be dealing with that on another side. So and apparently Maria Hill comes with a proposition after the events of One World of Doom, which is of course after, and it does make sense because one, Ryan North did write that and write this, so of course he wrote himself a way to be like, well, you know what, let's see if we can just throw a little bit more with this. So the Maria Hill in the Heroes partnership got brought up again because that's what happened. I do love the fact that she comes in and be like, look, all of y'all, with the exception of you, Ben, all of y'all could basically destroy the Earth. So this new Shield, we kind of want to, have a nice little we want a partnership and not do some things that we used to do,
Right.
to kind of help you, help us, help each other, help the world be safe type situation. But that being said, we find out that Power Pack apparently has some branding. They end up going up against an old, Fantastic Four hero who I think most recently showed up in Vision and Scarlet Witch. We also got references and some more MCUification by a little robot showing up that has had a feature in the most recent movie, of course, who has been showing up lately, but also a nice little reference to another robotic entity that the Fantastic Four used to have employed for them. So that was nice to see because I was like, wow, I hadn't seen that one in a minute. But we get some encryption lessons, some video game logic lessons before going into the last bit of, and we find out what Reed Richards does for his encryption needs, which apparently was slightly upended by what ends up happening at the end of this issue. And so that would spoil something for Agent 70, so I'm not gonna say it. But yes, the four gets called upon by a person or by an entity, but for a reason and one particular person specifically. So hence the reason, which goes back to what Agent 70 said about who's front and center in this issue and the story going forward. So looking to see why and how and what we're for is and how's for that in this arc. But so far, yeah, pretty good stuff here. You got anything else?
Just that seeing the kind of cameo appearance by the guest villain kind of raised a quick question in my head very quickly of whatever happened to this guy's kid who was running around with the Fantastic Four and the Future Foundation.
In fact, the other last time that we saw that character, both of those characters specifically, actually was in the pages of might have been the last volume of Fantastic Four, where I think he tried to come and get that kid, and they were
Okay.
he was still kind of around them. So the kid's still around somewhere, but we don't. I mean, I'm not entirely sure where he and the rest of the Future Foundation is at this point. But
Right.
as far as we know, they're still around.
Right. Because obviously the FF have relocated to the Baxter Building in this series.
Apparently, you're right, because they were because they were in. I guess they still have, they're still out there on Ben's aunt's place. But yeah, I guess they did finally feel like, well, we can come back into town. Which, yeah, the reason why they ran out of town in the first place. Did we actually get that? I think we did, but I don't remember. Because there was a reason why
they
they
kind of
weren't using
reset. They kind of reset everything. I think at the end of the last volume.
Right. Because they were even up before this, they were kind of going back and forth, even up until up until recent issues and One World on Doom, they were basically still going back and forth. So I don't know if I guess they are indeed back in the building properly, and because they haven't really said as much. So
Right. It makes us want to go back to the first 5 issues, and just kind of look at any of the hints that they've been leaving and seeing if they've permanently relocated back to the Baxter Building now that it's been reconstructed.
Right. So, well, yeah, and that'll be a thing for
that's us forgetting or not seeing, not exactly remembering when or if this actually was established in continuity. So
right, if it was indeed established, because like I said, there are cases where it hasn't yet, and they're just like, I don't know, it was just cute. There's a lot has happened in the world at large, both in comics and actually, but in this particular case, like we had a whole Doctor Doom thing situation going on, so they could just,
which is still resolving itself, right? Like it's resolved, but it's still resolving itself, like the after effects and the ramifications.
Right. So all of that could just be like, you know what, we might not even have to deal with it. We just let that sweep under the road and just let things go. But the one last thing I'm going to say is Mr. Fantastic made a slingshot, and guess who was the sling? And guess who it was? So therefore, we are now hence calling it a thing shot.
No.
I just had to, because it was like there was no way in the world that was going to happen and not get referenced. So, but yes, Fantastic Four #6, continuously a great book, a great read. So therein lies that. And with that, folks, we are going to get into a little bit of rapid fire.
Oh, just very quickly, there's a comment in the chat about Bentley that you may want to read.
Oh, no. Oh, the thing wasn't even scrolling for me. That's why I didn't see it. So, actually, there's a few here, and I'll just get that one particularly. Bentley made an older clone of him to suggest that the current is. Oh, right. I vaguely remember that. I still don't remember when that happened, but yes, I remember that happening. And I think that might have been the aforementioned last volume of Fantastic Four or something. So, but yeah, sorry, Von Gloom, I missed your other I missed your other messages because the thing wasn't scrolling for me. So,
a likely excuse. No, I'm teasing.
But yes, but we still wait. Did they reserve her maybe brother cousin mystery? I'm not sure what that one is in reference to. I assume you're talking about.
Oh, maybe that might be a dreadnought thing.
Or maybe he's talking about Doctor Strange and the person who shows up there. I'm not sure, but I'll leave that to Von Gloom to clarify which one. I totally missed that. Apologies, but as we're waiting for the answer to that, we're going to go into rapid fire.
All righty, rapid fire review time, folks. We got incoming.
I ain't got time to bleed.
All right, here we go. First up for me is Batman #4, published by DC. It's written by Matt Fraction with art by Jorge Jimenez, colors by Tomo Mori, letters by Clayton Cowles, and Jorge Jimenez. So I wanted to touch on a couple of points here. Batman #4 introduces a brand new character who is kind of stepping into a void, as it were, because this new character basically is looking to run in a very modern way the underworld in Gotham City, right? And kind of centralize a lot of the money that flows in and around the illicit acts that happen in Gotham City, right? That's pretty cool. This character does not exactly have the most original name, right? But at the end of the day, it's a character that, the way the story has created a space, a void in Gotham that this character can step into makes sense, right? It just makes some sense. Then the next thing I was going to mention about this book is that this is the first time I've really felt like I've noticed Jorge Jimenez's art seemed a little rushed, but that's just me. That's just my own personal take on what I'm seeing on the page. But that just could be because I haven't been following him that closely in previous runs that he's done where I would be able to notice it. But it seemed to me that some of the stuff here seemed a little bit more rushed than what I had seen previously. But it's still worth keeping up with, and I'm probably going to keep up with this issue, with this book, going forward, at least another few issues. Next up is DCKO Superman vs. Captain Atom #1, published by DC. It's written by Joshua Williamson with art by Sean Isaacs, colors by Trish Mulvihill, and Hi-Fi, and letters are by Dave Sharp. So I decided to look at this particular DCKO spin-off or one-shot because this is part of DC's all fight month. I mean, it's just it's just silliness, putting these characters against each other, and it's all very grade school, like who would win in a fight, Superman or Captain Atom? I get it. It's pretty, it's still fun at its core, right? At its root, right? But the reason why I decided to read this issue is because I've always been on the outer edges of understanding the Captain Atom character, right? Roddykat and I had this discussion in our pre-production meeting, and we both kind of figured that we'd been really exposed to this original Charlton character, Charlton Comics character through like Justice League Unlimited, and through possibly, and for me, possibly through like some of the tie-ins from Overpower and the Overpower card game, and maybe HeroClix. Just understanding what Captain Atom can do and how powerful he is, and just understanding that he's obviously a very military-based character, and all of that stuff is explored in this issue. It's no surprise who comes out on top because it is DC after all. Part of it is relatively predictable, but it is still interesting to see this character figure out a way. So that is it for that issue. Next up is Gotham Academy First Year #3 of 6, again published by DC. The story in this miniseries is by Brendan Fletcher, Becky Cloonan, and Carl Kerschel, the original storytellers behind Gotham Academy. The script in this book is by Brendan Fletcher, art is by Marco Ferrari, colors are by Ava De La Cruz, and letters are by Steve Wands. It's pretty cool to see Olive Silverlock and Maps Mizoguchi and Kyle Mizoguchi in this Gotham Academy story, that's slightly remixed. It's definitely a gentle reboot of the story, but it definitely makes for visiting with these characters, with these familiar characters in kind of a different setting, kind of a rebooted setting. And we have, obviously, because it's in Gotham, we've got plenty of Gotham City hijinks involved, and lots of guest appearances and cameo appearances by characters you would be familiar with if you're familiar with the Batman corner of the universe. Next up for me is Binary, number 3 of 3, published by Marvel. This is one of the Age of Revelation tie-ins. This is the last issue of Binary. It's written by Stephanie Phillips with art by Giada Belviso. Colors are by Rochelle Rosenberg and letters are by VC's Travis Lanham. This issue has, you have to remember that this is an Age of Revelation. This is a possible future where, this is probably going to be fodder for future publications, but, at the end of the day, it also may involve some of these characters in the present tense. We'll see how any Carol Danvers, any stories involving Carol Danvers might carry forward from this, but I kind of struggle to see where that might come from. But all in all, this is a 3-part story that involves the Phoenix, if Carol Danvers, had been transferred the power, and we've gotten some, because obviously this is meant to tie into the Phoenix story that Stephanie Phillips was telling with Jean Grey in space. We also get a little bit of a tie-in with Madeline Pryor. No big spoiler here, because if Jean is somewhere, Madeline's never all that far away. So, that is how this how this kind of trio of issues kind of ties together. Next up for me is Hulk Smash Everything, number 1 of 5, published by Marvel. It's written by Ryan North with art by Vincenzo Caratu. Colors are by Federico Blee and letters are by our favorite lettering paisan, VC's Joe Caramagna. This is a 5-issue limited series, and the premise is fairly simple, right? It seems to be independent of or outside of most of our recognized continuity, while still holding on to a couple of the things that have become MCU-ified in the recent past. But at the same time, still dealing with very traditional, Marvel tropes like, Doctor Strange and his Sanctum Sanctorum, and somebody maybe not having the best of intentions, trying to burgle their way in. The way that person decides to burgle their way in is by utilizing the Hulk. And because it's the Hulk, it's also, the burglar is a Hulk-related character. So tie all that together, turns into a pretty interesting issue. Bear in mind, because it's a 5-issue limited series, this might actually play better as a collected volume. Last but not least is Wiccan Down the Witch's Road. No, it's not Down it's just Wiccan Witch's Road, number 1 of 5, published by Marvel. It's written by Wyatt Kennedy with art by Andy Pereira, colors by Brian Valenza, and letters are by VC's Ariana Marr. So, this comes directly out of the aftermath of Imperial, right? Because they, these two characters, when I say these two characters, we're dealing with Billy and Teddy, right? Wiccan and Hulkling. Immediately following the downfall of Teddy's regime, due to the events of Imperial, right? They find themselves crash landing back on Earth, and they are not in good shape. Wiccan is dealing with some power issues, and Teddy's just very, very injured. And they find themselves in a place where they're looking for help, and Wiccan finds himself going down the Witch's Road. The character they find at the end of the Witch's Road is a character from myth, a character from story, a character whose name might be familiar to you because that is what they call John Wick. Right? That's nice. What they call John Wick. Right? And I'm looking at this character, and I'm like, that's not John Wick. But I understand why they use the characters, why they named this particular character that. And when Roddykat sees it, he'll understand what I mean, right? It's more like the character who It's more like what was imagined when this character's name was invoked in Ant-Man by David Dastmalchian, right? But we all know this character. Well, the mythology of this character was tied into John Wick, but at the same time, we kind of understand why, they utilized this character name or named this particular character this in this issue. So, but with that, it's good to see that Wiccan, is getting an immediate follow up to his story following the events of Imperial, and that's it for me.
I have a question about that because from what I remember from the end of Imperial and their part in it specifically, they had gotten a ride home, or one of them, I think, had gotten a ride home.
Right. They're getting a ride home and the ride crashes.
Oh, that's weird. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't think that would happen with that particular ride, but all right. From what I remember,
I mean, that's the impetus for the story.
Right, sure, but but that's what I'm saying. That's why I was like, wait a minute. The way I remember they bowed out of Imperial was.
Now you're going to make me go back and look at that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. The Imperial had a lot of things going on with it, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was just like they just kind of excuse.
Right. Imperial had a lot of big concept stuff that they were doing, but I don't know if they were like so tied up with like the details in that regard.
Right, but I assumed because of the way they left out from what I remember seeing of this was their impetus for this, but I guess not from what it sounds. But like I said, I will read this when I read this. And actually, before we go into mine, Von Gloom's was talking about did they resolve her maybe brother cousin mystery? We'll talk about Batgirl. So it wasn't necessarily a mystery. She just found out, and we did talk about that. So she found out that she had a brother from her mother and some other dude, and that has been addressed in the course of the book. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unless there is something else more to it that we don't know as of yet, then no, that has not been. But it wasn't necessarily a mystery. They pretty much spelled out like, no, this is kind of what happened in the past, and and by the way, you got a brother now because of this.
Right.
But that being said, so yeah, like I said, they could probably throw another wrinkle into it, but I don't think they will. So for my. Oh well, I'll just have to put that on in post, but that's fine. For my first book, Thundercats Lost, number 9, written by Ed Brisson, with art by Elton Tomasi, colors by Rashan Kiritiano, and letters by Jeff Eckleberry. So we found out a couple of things in this book, one of which that apparently the next issue of this book is the last issue of this series. And it kind of makes sense, I guess, slightly kind of makes sense given how this particular issue ends. But Scorpius at last issue kidnapped and injured Ligon, who's a part of the crew. The rest of the crew in this issue are going after them. Scorpius is trying to get some information from Ligon, with which he does not have, because Scorpius seems to know a lot about the Thunderians' recent excursion or previous excursions to Third Earth that this crew apparently was not privy to. In fact, this book references that Panther one-shot from recently. And a thing that happens that was brought up there, but also, like I said, something that's probably going to be, I assume, going to be explained in the next couple of issue or two of Thundercats proper, because of who shows up in that book and in the last issue that we talked about last week. But this issue ends. Well, let's just say things don't look good for the crew. Because they've been hunted, they've been hunted by a particular person this whole time, and like I said, Scorpius was working for, or I guess not necessarily working with this person, because we find out that Scorpius more to Scorpius in previous issues than what was initially known about them. So, and we also find out, yeah, the Thundercats the Thunderians may or may not have been colonizers of a sort. So, but yeah, like I said, that all leads up to the end of this issue, which, like I said, which is going to lead up to the end of this book. Whether the events of Thundercats are going to, kind of intercede or whatever the case may be, in the end of this issue, or excuse me, in the end of the next issue. Guess we'll find out then. So, next up. Absolute Green Lantern number 9, written by Al Ewing, art by Sid Koshian, colors by Pressy, and letters by Lucas Gattoni. So the first note I have in my notes is, who is Steve Dayton? That is not a character I know of. It doesn't really matter because
so very quickly,
yes,
Steve Dayton.
Steve Dayton.
At
yes.
least, so I'm gonna Google this just to be sure, because we're really jogging my New Teen Titans memory.
Okay. Well,
yeah, it is. So Steve Dayton was formerly known as Mento and a member of the Doom Patrol.
okay, well that explains some references that character that was given by that character and another character they were talking about or talking to, but it kind of doesn't matter because that character has been taken out of play by this other character that I did not know, that I don't know too much about, which I will name in a little bit. But Hector Hammond sent his dude to take care of some business, that being what I just said was one of them, but also sends the same person after Joe Moline, who, as we know in this issue, in this book, has the Green Lantern powers. Also, we find out that, well, she goes to her ex, who plays a part of the story, for help, but of course her, they have some issues to work out with that. But we also see some other folks coming through. Simon Baz shows up, which he's shown up in this book before, and a person that is named Agent Limbo. Again, another character I have no idea about, along with another character named Johnny Double. If that's familiar to somebody, then congratulations. But they're all mixed up in this. Carol Ferris gets referenced. I do know that name. But the person that ends up going after Joe in the end was naming themselves at the beginning of this issue Nemesis, but was revealed to be called Goldface. So if either one of those names are familiar to you, then you know more about this than I do, which, you know what, I've said before, my DC knowledge is very light. So if these are established characters, from long time Green Lantern stuff, then yeah, you got me on that one. Next up, staying on the DC corner, Birds of Prey number 28, which is the last issue of this book. Written by Kelly Thompson, pencils by Sammy Basri, inks by Vicente Cifuentes, colors by Adriano Lucas, and letters by Clayton Cowles. So yeah, they've been doing this whole, there's this whole shadow army that's been being a thorn in the sides of the birds for reasons, and that reason is Oracle's data bank, basically, because she pretty much got the goods on almost everybody. And that ends up being the goal of the shadow. What we found out was the goal of the shadow army, and what the Birds of Prey end up doing about that, which I won't necessarily go into. But that's been a couple of issues, the past couple of issues. But it involves a virtual video game, both virtual and actual, like together, and part of their resolution has to do with a kaiju-sized idea from Big Barda, who came up with a pretty amusing plan. But Barda, barter's barter. So she uses it for what she does. And that all leads to, like I said, this is the last issue of this book, so therefore the birds of prey, what ends up happening to the birds, for now, for the end, at the end of this volume, and possibly going forward, I guess, or I guess it doesn't necessarily set up the next version of the book that I know of, but it was like, well, this is it for right now, and but that's not the end of the birds. We'll come back for something at some point. I guess that is what they were trying to do. And the last thing was that Canary gets a call from someone very familiar and close to her, which I assume she's probably over in that book because of that call. Or maybe it's leading to the next version of Birds of Prey. I don't think it is, but I suspect it has something to do with the person who called her, who she's very well acquainted to, and is in that book, which she already was at certain points anyway. So so we'll see. And that, I believe, is it for me. Kliqs of the week.
Kliqs of the week. Do you have yours or your candidate?
Candidates are G.I. Joe 15. I did say that earlier. Fantastic Four number 6 is one of them. That Doctor Strange one kind of had a little something to it, but I'm not sure if I'm prepared for that one yet. I think I'm just gonna leave it to those though.
Gotcha. My candidates are probably Batman number 4, DC KO, Superman versus Captain Atom, and FF. And I think I'm going to just choose FF because I had a lot of fun reading that, because that issue had a lot of different twists to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it pivoted from one thing and then went totally into an introduction into what the premise of the next issue is going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was definitely a nice little setup to what's coming. So I agree with that one. You know what? Yeah, I'll. This is going to be one of those things we've done in the last couple of weeks where he picks one and I'm picking the other thing, even though he wasn't going to pick this one anyway. But G.I. Joe 15 is my Kliq of the week. FF, damn good as always. So you can't go wrong with that. And with that, we are going to get into the news section. But first, an ad read.
Our first ad read of the night is for Wink, your personalized wine club. Wink is a world of wine delivered right to your door. From rosé to Cabernet to Torronté, Wink has over 100 styles of wine to discover. Ever try an orange wine? Wink connects you to a world of exclusive wines tailored to your taste and delivered directly to your door. Wink delivers 4 bottles of wine to you every month with free shipping. You can pick your own bottles or let Wink choose and match to your taste. It doesn't cost a thing to become a member, and you can skip or cancel anytime. And now, the listeners of the Comic Book Chronicles can enjoy an exclusive discount of $20 off your first order. To place your first order with $20 off, and to help keep our show free for you, go to our network website at cspn.us/wink. That's cspn.us/WINC. Wink wines through CSPN. Do it today. And now we get into the news.
Cinematic news. We start off with Michael B. Jordan's Thomas Crown Affair adds Aubrey Plaza and more to the cast. So in a recent interview with Variety for their awards circuit podcast, Jordan revealed that Aubrey Plaza, Ruth Negga, Papa Esuedu, excuse me, I don't know I'm not pronouncing that name right, but I know I'm not. Have all joined the film, and also, let's see, the trio of stars will join Jordan, Adriel Jonah, Lily Gladstone, and Kenneth Branagh in the upcoming movie, making it one of the most star-studded casts for a film we've seen, according to this article. It is unclear at this point what everybody's exact roles will be, outside of the fact that Michael B. Jordan will be the Thomas Crown of the Thomas Crown Affair. So, says, quote here from MJB or MBJ. I didn't want a reboot. I wanted a reimagination, said Jordan. The first two films were about rich white guys stealing for fun. That doesn't land today. Ours is more personal. The stakes are higher. Still got the fashion, romance. Ruth Negga is the queen. I am trying to be very careful about how I'm saying that name. We got an incredible cast. Aubrey Plaza, Kenneth Branagh, and Papa Esuedu. So there you go. Yeah, I didn't think we needed another version of that movie, but hey, you know what? It's interesting at the very least. An interesting spin. We'll see what to do with. Next up, though,
Chloe Zhao revealed the original Marvel movie she got offered before taking up Eternals. So apparently she appeared on The Ringer, right? Which I need to go and find this particular podcast because I follow a lot of The Ringer content, and I'm going to see what she says here in this interview, because according to the interview, she was first offered the 2021 prequel Black Widow before she took up the Eternals. So that's pretty interesting news, because what she says in this interview, with this article that kind of outlines what happened in this interview, she found the Eternal story much more appealing and she wanted to jump into it. And at the end of the day, the story is about a pantheon of gods having discussions about the nature of humanity. It's a bigger concept than Black Widow. And I actually want to go back and revisit Eternals, even though, I watched it once. I thought it was okay in the theaters. I'm definitely an Eternals defender, but I need to go and rewatch it again now with the benefit of hindsight, the benefit of, Disney Plus being able to pause and start again. So we'll see how that goes.
Right. For some strange reason, I felt like this information was already out there on the table, that Zhao was offered Black Widow. And maybe I'm just thinking about this after the fact, because I feel like that's it's kind of borderline old news, but it might not be, and I'm just thinking it. So anyway, so yeah, that'll be an interesting podcast to listen to. Next up, though, award-winning actor Ben Kingsley is taking his MCU imposter Trevor Slattery to the next level, offering acting lessons ahead of his return in Wonder Man, apparently. So it says here that, there's a promo, yes, that is attached to this article by one Trevor Slattery, which I have not seen. So it says and apparently, yeah, it is Slattery hawking the Slattery method of acting along with a phone number that people are definitely probably going to call to see if it's real.
You gotta be kidding me. That is so funny.
And in fact, the article writer did actually text the number. So, while it does offer to allow fans to, quote, sign up for the Slattery method acting class, accepting entry to the seminar actually signs the user up for text message updates about Wonder Man. So there you go. Now you don't have to do that.
The Slattery method. Oh my God.
Oh yes, and judging by what we have seen of that dude, I'm sure it's going to be very, very silly.
What was that part? Very, very
silly.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, but that is, like I said, you can take a look at the the promo for yourself, which all it is a Wonder Man promo basically. But you can check it out for yourself in the show notes in that article. Next up.
Deadline was reporting that after spending almost a decade defending the Marvel Cinematic Universe as Black Widow, speaking of, the Bat Signal may be calling Scarlett Johansson into the latest The Batman. So, we still don't know what's going on with the deal making. Sources tell Deadline that the Oscar-nominated Johansson is in final negotiations with the studio and director Matt Reeves for one of the new roles in The Batman Part 2. If a deal closes, she would join Robert Pattinson, who is set to reprise his role as the Caped Crusader in the upcoming sequel that Reeves is writing and directing. If and when it ever comes out, it's taking forever. It is. She's probably not going to step into Catwoman because that was Zoe Kravitz. So there's lots of rumors of, I saw a bunch of articles regarding what characters she might be taking up.
Yeah, same.
Lots of people are saying Pamela Isley, aka Poison Ivy, might be someone. Honestly, it's probably because I best remember her as Black Widow. I wouldn't be against her playing a version of Black Canary.
Maybe I don't know. I'm not really seeing that for her either. But I would.
You know what it is? I think that and I apologize for interrupting. Hold your thought. The only reason why I say Black Canary is because I think of the Frank Miller and Jim Lee All-Star Batman.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it. That's the only reason why.
Yeah. Like I said, I didn't really have anything else to say outside of what I just said. So that's you're good. But I don't know who I would think of her as, like, maybe a
I saw. Yeah, I was about to say I saw someone. I saw an article that cast her as a revamped Vicky Vale. I'm like, okay,
maybe I could see that actually. Yes, that I could see. But who's thinking about Vicky Vale at this point? Unless you're Batman. I'd agree. Anyway, yeah, but we'll see. And I also saw a couple of those articles, but I didn't read through them, so it is what it is. But breaking news, folks, and some very sad news before we get to the next the next article, the next actual article. Cary-Hiroyuki Tagawa has passed away. So you might know him from Mortal Kombat, The Last Emperor, or Man in the High Castle, and as well as many other roles that the dude has done. Apparently he has passed today, or was this last Thursday? It's dated today, so it just says died Thursday in Santa Barbara. He was 75. He died due to complications from a stroke earlier this morning. Okay, so it was this morning. Surrounded by his children, and his family had confirmed the news to Deadline. That sucks. So yeah, if you remember him from he was Shang Tsung in the Mortal Kombat movies. But again, he's played a whole bunch of other things outside of that. But they, so that's some sad news because I liked him. He was a great actor. So wait, apparently he was in that Tekken movie? Get out. I don't remember that, but I think that Tekken movie was not good. So yeah, I mean it wasn't. Let's face it, a lot of those video game movies were not good back then, so ish. But yes, rest in peace to that man's indeed. Like I'm trying to think because there's a couple of other outside of video game whatever stuff that I'm trying to think of that he's done, but this article also doesn't mention that. And I'm trying to blank and it's late, so we're gonna move back as Von Gloom also says a couple of choice Mortal Kombat quotes. But I am, and also now I got to watch that Tekken movie. God damn it. Or finish watching that Tekken movie because I've seen part of it, but if it's the one I'm thinking about, because I know they've done a couple. But regardless, I'll do this next one. DC's Green Lantern show gets an official 2026 release date. This is from HBO Max, apparently. So the CEO, Casey Bloys, shared an update in a presentation confirming that the Lanterns will premiere next summer, though a specific release date has yet to be announced. So yeah, so I guess summer 2026, that Lantern show is going to happen on HBO Max. You know, for what that means at this point. Lanterns will run, according to this article, 8 episodes. And according to this article, it is likely to premiere after the release of the Supergirl movie on June 26, 2026. So therein lies that. Next up.
All right, as reported by Deadline, there will be 2 big franchises for holiday season 2028. God willing, we're still around for that.
Yeah, I know, right?
Right?
Yeah. This is the way things are going now.
I'm getting too old for this shit. 2028, 2 big franchises for holiday season 2028 from Paramount. The first one being an untitled hybrid live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie set for November 17th, just prior to Thanksgiving, and a Sonic Universe feature set for December 22nd, 2028, just prior to Christmas.
Yeah. So
Yep.
more Sonic, more Turtles. Not surprising, honestly, about either one.
Yep.
Sorry, I was looking up some info about that Tekken movie. I know I've seen parts of it, but it's one of those things that comes up on streamer services. Like, I have nothing else to watch, so I guess I have to. So I don't see the whole thing, but yeah. Which actually reminds me of a thing that I tend to do on that line with those such movies, but that's a whole nother thing for a whole nother time. Next up, though, let's see. Korean American leaders in Hollywood to honor Park Chan-wook, Maggie Kang, and Lee Byung-hun. So the inaugural KALH honors celebrations will take place on December 7th, so that's coming up in a couple of days. Apparently, the Korean American leaders in Hollywood formed in 2020 to, as the quote says in this article, to create a network of industry leaders that connects and leverages our diverse areas of expertise to further educate, engage, and empower Korean Americans throughout film, television, and streaming media, per its website. Let's see. So Deadline reports that at this year's honor celebration, the 3 people that I mentioned are going to be honored. Park Chan-wook will receive the Visionary Filmmaker honor as, quote, one of cinema's greatest auteurs, who has written and directed some of the most acclaimed and influential films in contemporary cinema, according to the article. Of course, Maggie Kang, co-writer and co-director of K-pop Demon Hunters, will receive the Pioneer Award for her work on the surprise hit animated film from Sony and Netflix. And Lee Byung-hun, who wasn't that Snake Eyes? I mean, not Snake Eyes. Wasn't that Storm Shadow in the G.I. Joe movies? Anyway, will receive the Distinguished Actor honor following back-to-back performances in No Other Choice and Netflix's... Oh, no, I'm thinking of something else. Somebody else. Sorry. In Netflix's Squid Game. He was nominated for a Gotham Award and some other stuff. I'm not going to read through all of that.
He did play Storm Shadow.
So that was him? Okay, I thought I wasn't tripping. And that would be the one I pulled for him, right? It was also not great movies. But anyway.
Right.
But yeah, so like I said, the inaugural Korean American Leaders in Hollywood honors celebration will take place in Los Angeles on December 7th. Next up.
Chainsaw Man author Tatsuki Fujimoto's acclaimed one-shot Look Back is getting the live-action treatment. As revealed by both Fujimoto's editor Shihei Lin on Twitter and in the pages of Chainsaw Man's latest chapter in Shonen Jump, Look Back is being turned into a live-action film in 2026 by director Hirokazu Koreeda. The filmmaker is perhaps best known to Western audiences for 2013's Like Father, Like Son and 2018's Shoplifters. Look Back, which was turned into an animated film and streamed on Prime Video last year, centers on the unlikely relationship between two fledgling teenage manga artists. While both Fujino and shy, reclusive Kiyomoto dream of hitting it big, they soon grow distant with their worlds turned upside down after a tragic event. I watched that. I watched Look Back, the animated film. It's pretty good.
Okay.
It's pretty good. It's definitely worth it on, to check it out on Prime.
Nice. The only thing I'm thinking of is look back at it, and I'm so sorry for that. Anyway, next up, as we as we exit the anime manga corner into comic book news. Okay. Speed Racer is coming back with a brand new series that is perfectly tuned for younger audiences looking to get into comics for themselves. Per press release from Mad Cave Studios, the publisher's kid imprint Paper Cuts is set to release a new Speed Racer series geared specifically for young readers. Which, by the way, there was I think Speed Racer number 5 came out this weekend, and I didn't get a chance to read it. Excuse me. The upcoming graphic novel, Speed Racer Adventures Volume 1, comes courtesy of the creative team of Franco and Derek Charm, and is set to arrive in stores everywhere on April 28th, 2026. Readers can check out the main cover in this article. And there you go. It looks like Speed Racer. Go figure. Next up.
A nearly pristine copy of the original 1939 Superman #1 has sold through Heritage Auctions for $9.12 million US, officially making it the most valuable and expensive comic of all time, along with the extreme rarity of any comics from 1939. The copy of Superman #1's almost impossibly perfect condition, rated at 9.0 out of 10 by CGC, drove its price to record levels. The issue itself was found, I love these stories, was found in a box of newspapers while cleaning out an attic in Northern California, with its essentially miraculous condition preserved by its placement among other papers and a perfect set of environmental circumstances. Crazy.
Yeah, absolutely crazy, but must be
in
nice.
an attic
with a bunch of scraps. Oh wait, that's
Listen, as a collector, as a comic book hunter, I've done my fair share of hunting around, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's just like, that's just like a crazy dream for most collectors, is
right.
Going up into an attic and finding this in a box of papers,
right?
Newspapers.
Right. I know my collection old enough to know that even the oldest thing that I have is not in the greatest of shape, and it is still bagged border stuff. But I know it was like I bought them in a certain condition even before that. So I know I don't have anything of that old and that valuable. But boy, what if I did?
Right.
So, anywho, next up. Actually, yes. DC's Twisted Future Batman has been unmasked, and their identity is shocking. Not so much if you've seen the permalink, but also this is a spoiler for DCKO Night Fight #2, which is on sale now. So if you plan on reading that, we will not spoil it for here. But judging by what I see from what I saw of this, it should not be that surprising, if we're being honest. But obviously I also have not read Night Fight, so I'm pretty sure that this is probably a different version than if I told you the name, you be like, huh? Okay, but sure, why not? But also don't look at the permanent link. Next up.
Some interesting news. In spite of making, well, this is editorializing, but from a particular comics retailer and pundit.
Mm-hmm.
In spite of making a quote far superior comic book, apparently the sales on the DC published DC Marvel Batman Deadpool #1 have disappointed relative to the Marvel version Deadpool Batman one shot. In a social media post, Brian Hibbs shared raw numbers and anecdotal experience that seems to suggest some of the hype around the crossover may have cooled in the weeks between the comics. Let's see here. Yeah, it's probably just because Deadpool Batman came out first, but that's just my guess.
I wouldn't be surprised. That's logical. But also,
I didn't even realize that the DC version was priced higher.
Again, I'm also not surprised by that either. But yeah, I don't know because I didn't get a copy of it.
Yeah, I was about to say that's a bad sign because I bought both of them, and you'd think I'd look at my receipts.
Right now, yeah, that's also another thing. Trust me, half the time I don't either. Honestly, I get the get the total price and just keep pushing. Although sometimes the dude that's ringing up my thing was like, "Oh, this is that price." I'm like, "Yeah." So sometimes on certain stuff, I'm like, "Yeah." Burden of collectors, but again, this goes back to something I've said a long time ago. Don't just take anecdotal evidence as gospel, because all it is anecdotal. I mean, there might be something to it, but you can't put that much stock into it based on one person's account or two people's account. Next up, though, Captain America #6 will send Steve Rogers and Nick Fury Jr.'s new shield into their quote-unquote powder keg of war-torn Latveria, where they just really put a whole paragraph as the title of this thing, where they will have to reckon with the Ghost of Doom as well as the rampaging Red Hulk. Why? So this is an interview with Chip Zdarsky about the new arc of Captain America. I didn't see too much actual interview questions in here, but I guess I'm assuming that's probably somewhere else. But yeah, Newsarama talked with Zdarsky, and here I was just gonna pull a really quick. There's some art here, some kind of slightly familiar art. If you're MCU-fied, let's just say. But he's talking about the beginning of the last arc. Here we go. So Cap will have to bring the experience from the first arc into his new mission, in which he helps guide Nick Fury Jr.'s new incarnation of S.H.I.E.L.D. After One World Under Doom. So
on your left.
Yeah, exactly. Here's a quote. Nick Fury Jr. is starting small. The downfall of S.H.I.E.L.D. was its size, its massive reach, and Fury knows that now. Because that's never changed during the course of years. Zdarsky tells you Newsarama. So his new team is laser focused, soldiers of fortune who won't let anything get in their way, anything in the way of the mission. Cap has the experience of Latveria from our first arc, plus the moral clarity that Fury needs to make sure his team succeeds. Also feels seemingly MCU leaning.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's wild because I think I talked about this before, is that they've at least this version, this edition of Captain America, this latest volume puts Cap's defrosting so close to the recent, so close to now. Right? It's just jarring.
Right.
And it's hard to kind of reconcile that with the rubber band continuity. It is in my head.
Yeah, and I'd be with you on that because we have been at this for a long time.
Yeah,
so we have seen things.
Yes, that's definitely one way to put it.
But yeah, so like I said, we're I'm sure that issue's coming. Also, shades of Agents of Shield the show when in that thing. Obviously they were not soldiers of fortune, but a small ragtag team, getting stuff done, just kind of puts it out there, which I need to go back and watch that finish watching that show. Next up though, Spider-Man's crazy alien romance is a complete game changer according to this article, which is also a preview of Amazing Spider-Man number 17, which goes on sale next week.
Right. I've been talking about this on and off, like how the story or the story's alternating between these two storylines, the books alternating between these two storylines. So, I know I've mentioned this before, or at least danced around it. So I guess they're going to be exploring it for a little while longer. So.
Right. So yeah, and this article also mentions the split stories in this book. And talks about what Peter's doing out in space. And apparently, he's getting with some alien chick like his friend Johnny tends to do. So, not surprising. Like, I guess maybe, I don't know. So yeah, we'll get to that when we talk about that issue. Maybe I'll catch up by then. I doubt it. Next up though,
alrighty, the Celestials arrive in the Ultimate Universe to rain down destruction as the alt reality turns 2 years old. So these are some looks at the interior pages from Ultimate Universe 2 years in number 1, which is out this week. I need to open it. Neither of us read it. Ultimate Universe 2 years in number 1 is written by Dennis Camp and Alex Packnadel, with art credited to superstars from across the Marvel Universe going by the pages. Those artists include Javier Pulido, Phil Noto, Francesco Mana, Lee Ferguson, and Pat Booton. Yeah, I guess we're both going to need to take a look at this now.
Even the preview pages got some questionable characters, or at least one questionable character here. But yeah, we're definitely gonna have to catch up with this to see what's going on. But also, hey, if you're gonna bring down a universe, Celestial's not a terrible way to do it, I guess. Or at least that's the start of it. We don't know, how it's actually gonna end. Brian Michael Bendis shares an exclusive look at Avengers 800, which apparently is coming out next week, according to this article. Oh wait, no. Hold on, this article came out last week, so that did not come out this week.
What's that?
This article came out in November, and this says that Bendis is going to be back on Avengers next week, which would be this week, which is not true because that book did not come out. Either way, it doesn't matter. So I assume it's going to be next week. Next week as we're recording.
Right.
Yes. So yeah, Avengers 34, aka the 800th issue of Avengers. Bendis is going to be back. We've talked about this before. This Comic Speed talked to Bendis about his return. He's got a quote here I'm just not going to say. He's also coming back with Mark Bagley for this, and there's some preview pages for that issue, which I'm very certain we will be talking about next week or whenever it drops. And also,
more than likely.
Yeah, brings up Powers, which is actually back in Comic Book One, which is funny, and a few other things that Bendis has been up to recently. So there you go. If you want to read that,
good for him.
Yeah, if you want to read that, the article is here in the show notes. Next up,
Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified made to pre-order Arctic Hiss tank campaign is launching tomorrow, maybe?
today.
So back during San Diego and New York Comic Cons, Hasbro announced they would be doing a G.I. Joe Classified made to pre-order Arctic Hiss tank as a Pulse exclusive. So we don't know when that pre-order window will be opening, but based on teases from Hasbro brand team members, it looks like that day may very well be very soon, because Hasbro held a panel at CCXP 2025 today, and they did some reveals. They did reveal a couple of Marvel Legends, so there may be some new news on this shortly.
Yeah, and in fact, that new news has happened because yes, that is out as of today. If you're watching the
Ah,
video
there you go.
version, you see I have the Hasbro Pulse page up.
Oh, I see the link. Yes, I
Mhm.
see the link. And it is for, and you can pre-order this G.I. Joe Classified Series number 216 Arctic Assault His Tank for $199.99.
Mhm.
5 minutes later.
All right, next up, you can also order a Transformers Takari Tomy Missing Link C11 Delta Magnus. You know, it is, as you can see here, if you're watching the video version, it's a different color scheme. It weirdly looks like a Megazord from Power Rangers, kind of, sort of. But that's kind of how these Missing Link variants go. So this collectible action figure is 10.3 inches. It's got chest panels, power belts, spears, launchers, a bunch of stuff. But it is on pre-order right now for $194.99. And it will, let's see. And the pre-order will be available to ship on approximately, according to this Hasbro Pulse site, October 1st, 2026. So go ahead and get on that if you're into that. And you know, I don't know. Some of these Missing Link variants are kind of interesting, but you know, yeah, I'll stick to. Wait, there are some other pictures here. There you go. Yep, there we go. So it looks like it's Ultra Magnus is just another variant, or it is a variant, and it's got the matrix of leadership, a little minifig, version of Roller, some other stuff. You know, the accoutrement, as we might say. But yeah. But anyway, that is that. Last but not least.
And our last article of the night is for the world's first fully auto-converting Soundwave robot. The Decepticons' loyal commander brought to life, officially licensed by Hasbro and Transformers, Robosen brings to life the world's first fully auto-converting Soundwave robotic experience. From screen to reality, witness an iconic robotic experience like never before. So this Soundwave is a Bluetooth speaker. You can, stream your stream your music through Bluetooth by searching for soundbox_XXXX to connect, and you'll be able to use it as a functional high quality speaker. It also has cassette player mode, kind of, in that it will be able to record using the functional front buttons. You can record your own voice and other things. Obviously not to a tape, but to its internal storage. You have the robot and cassette player modes. It is obviously going to be let's see here. It's obviously going to have weaponry. I think the eyes light up. That's pretty cool. The original voice and voice control, just like all the other Robosen robots, is here in Soundwave. You get the iconic talent of the original G1 voice, Frank Welker, with 200 plus lines created and recorded for this project. There are 48 voice commands for Soundwave. You can control Soundwave through remotely through the smartphone app, just like the other Robosen robots. You can coordinate this robot with other Robosen figures to recreate classic animations and battles, specifically with Megatron, but probably with updates with Optimus Prime and others. Lastly, pre-order now and begin your intel mission for the Decepticons. The early bird price for this is $900 and $999. You're saving $400 on this pre-order. for the first 500 orders, which ends January 4th. The regular price for this is $1,399.
I want this.
Estimated shipping begins in April 2026.
I would like this a lot, but I don't have the scratch for it. And this is funny because I feel like when we talked about the Megatron, I jokingly said, "Nah, they just need to do this one," and they did do this one. So whether they were actually listening or they had probably more than likely had plans to do this already, then it is also out there. Funny enough, there are MP3 players of Soundwave and Sound Blaster, the clone, out there. You know, the Chinese knockoffs, but nevertheless, they're out there if you're interested. I believe those also do transform, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, those are things. But yeah, you can kind of do that here with the Bluetooth situation. Yeah. They're trying to get my money, folks, and I can't. It's not going to happen, obviously, because I don't. But still, I would love this. I would love this. I would also like the Prime, but I would love this specifically. And what if it came with a tape that actually you record on? That would be real funny.
Yeah.
Like a recordable laser beak. That'd be so.
That would
craziness.
be funny.
Yes. But anyway, folks, that is it. Before we have any other gremlins happen.
Yeah, we're popping. We got to hop off before any more gremlins.
So let us get to the last ad read.
Our last ad read of the night is help keep our podcast free by shopping at Amazon. Visit cspn.us, then click the Keep Our Podcast Free link at the top of the page. From there, scroll down and click on the Amazon link to shop. Purchase items from Amazon as you normally would, whether it's books, music, electronics, jewelry, apparel, or Marvel Legends. For every purchase made on Amazon through our link, Amazon sends the CSPN a payment that helps us keep the Comic Book Chronicles podcast free for our listeners at no extra cost to you. Amazon.com through CSPN.us. Do it today.
All right, folks, that is it. We're gonna try to get off here. Don't mind the image that is on the screen right now because hey, we were talking about that earlier. We will be back next week like we normally do. You know how we do. I don't think we have anything pressing going on, so therein lies that. Maybe we'll get in a stream of Marvel Cosmic Invasion. There will definitely be a stream of a comic book adjacent video game that a couple of people might like. I don't know. And another, hopefully the beta thing is streamable of Token Fighting Souls, but we'll see if that's the case. But with that, I have been Roddykat. You can find me at Roddykat on Twitter and Blue Sky. You can find me at News and Need on Twitter and Blue Sky. You can find me at CBCaps on Instagram. Agent_70 on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads. You can find this here podcast on the Cold Slither Podcast Network. That's CSPN.us.
Do it today.
And you can find us on your podcast place of choice, whether it be Google Play, Google Play, Apple iTunes, aka Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the Cold Slither Podcast Network SoundCloud page. But you can also find us recording every Thursday night, mostly 9:30/10 o'clock Eastern time on youtube.com/TheKliqNation and twitch.tv/Comic Book Chronicles.
Make sure to click like, subscribe, leave us all the positive 5-star reviews, and hit that smash that like button, folks.
Indeed. And folks, always remember that, you know what? We've been here a while. We're going to continue to be here. I don't know. There's nothing else to say. This has been the Comic Book Chronicles. Peace.
Peace. One.
My time is up. Peace out to Brooklyn.
Good evening, Rick.
Would you believe it's Dr. Doom?
What's on your evil mind?